At several points in our lives, we have been and will be, and perhaps are, being gravely tested. And it's the integrity of our willpower, the fidelity of our belief under these conditions that will see us through to the other side. Specifically, there is a disposition that we can hold where even in the face of death, we still believe. There are several places that we can look in history to gain a unique insight into our capacity to be resolved and stalwart in the face of things, to continue to believe, regardless whatsoever of what is becoming of us, that we will do everything that we can do, and therefore no great harm can befall us. For ourselves, our conduct was aligned with our beliefs. We were true. In 57 BC, Servius Galba, at the head of the 12th Legion, during Caesar's Gallic Wars, was sent to secure a critical pass through the Alps, in modern-day Switzerland. He would be stationed in Octodurus for winter quarters and had secured an alliance, an agreement to peace with the local tribes there, notably the Veragri tribe. While here, in the development of their winter quarters, these soldiers awoke one day to a troubling predicament that the other half of the village in the mountain pass allocated to their friendly tribes was vacant and abandoned. And the mountain passes that had surrounded them, encircled them, were now lined on their tops with the masses, the swarms of Gallic soldiers come to kill them. Taking inventory of this in council with his top officers, Galba had decided to get a full audit of the situation. And it's true, things were certainly despairing. Things were not promising in the slightest. Several detachments of men have already been sent out, collecting supplies or fulfilling other duties, meaning that the legion currently on post, the 12th Legion, is under strength. They do not have a supply line. Their food reserves, therefore, are limited, which means starvation is possible in a prolonged siege. They're isolated from the rest of Caesar's army and cannot expect any kind of reinforcements of any kind. All road access into and out of their area of the mountain pass has been cut off. Checkmate, as it were. However, the Roman soldiers and Servius Galba, the officers under his command, they believed that were it absolutely necessary, they could abandon their heavy baggage and break like hell to try to make contact with friendly forces. Only if it was absolutely necessary. Until that juncture, they believed in the integrity of their walls, in the discipline of their soldiers, and in the execution of their doctrine. They held fast, though severely outnumbered. When the Gauls came storming down the mountain pass through the valley onto the fortress, its fortifications unfinished, they could barely hold, but hold they did. A flurry and a fury of projectiles, thrown weapons, javelins, and who knows what else, probably slingshots, sling bullets, flying at them. The soldiers took to the defensive walls and they held the line. They followed their orders. They executed as was expected of them. The soldier on the wall believed his role, his position, was integral to the communal survival of everyone. But it was important and integral that he follow his orders. The officers above them observed and knew that not only their soldiers' adherence to their word, but their ability to issue accurate and precise command was important. They believed in it. They knew it, for it would facilitate common survival. The higher officers, the legate, Servius Galba, could trust, believe, that the fidelity and integrity of his army was absolute. That even in conditions such as this, we would continue to operate in adherence to doctrine, we would continue to maintain beliefs, we would not lose ourselves, we will not rout, we will not fear, we will not break. And so the fighting carried on for 6 grueling hours, so much so that no soldier could stay away from the fighting. Thousands of Gauls could replace any number of the other, be them killed, wounded, tired, sick. He need only lay away from the combat to be replaced by 3 more. But for the Roman, no such exchange was possible. He had to stay still on the wall through exhaustion, through hunger, through illness, through injury. He had to deal with the losses of his comrades beside him. Servius Galba then devises a plan, a response. The enemy has been committed to this assault for some time, a quarter of the day. But there may be a way to use this against them, with their forces so close, burdened against the walls. Galba commands his officers to inform his men to lay off of the fighting where they can, to duck their heads down and only repel an enemy as they must, but to do no other unnecessary acts of bravery. He consults with his officers and determines, our soldiers all at once will sally out at all of the gates. They will surround the enemy. They will nullify their numerical advantage and make it so that they are unable to fully commit their numerical advantage. They will castrate them up against the walls of the fort they are so confident to take. And when the command is issued, the soldiers execute. The 12th Legion's cohorts storming out of the gates, surrounding the assaulting tribes, and severely butchering. It is often said that in Caesar's account of the Gallic Wars, the numbers given are often conflated. We are told that a legion of understrength men, anywhere from approximately 4,000 to 5,000 men, kills 10,000 enemy combatants, both in combat and in their subsequent rout, but that a host of 30,000 have come to kill them. It might be far more within the realm of possibility that it was closer to 15,000 who had come, and anywhere from 5,000 to maybe 8,000 who were killed. Anywhere from a third to around half. But still, that gives them a 3-to-1 numerical advantage. That sounds very feasible. After the fighting was done, Servius Galba did not challenge fate again. He gathered his forces and safely reconnected Roman lines. There's a determinism, a perseverance, an unwaveringness that these Romans exhibited in these conditions. We cannot necessarily attribute morality to their survival, for what could make them more moral, more just, and better than the locals who seek to oust them? These determinations are not for us to make. But what we can seek to emulate is the integrity of their resolve, their refusal to back down, to give in. Because it is the mind that first betrays, that would signal one to flight. But they stayed steady. that requires conscious deliberation. 3 years later, in 54 BC, upon Caesar's return from Britain, there was a drought, one that asphyxiated the harvest, one that deprived food reserves, forcing Caesar to dispatch his legions among the people of Gaul in order to put less strain on food reserves and in order to ensure relative security throughout the winter quarterings of his men throughout the province and to dissuade any of those who might wish to seek rebellion. Ambiorix, in the northeast of Gaul, convened a coalition of men to come against legates Cotta and Sabinus. There, they surrounded their winter quarters, which was, I believe, contained within a circumference of 100 miles to the next closest Roman outpost, anywhere from 50 to more miles away from said outpost. No, possibly 25 miles away. Regardless, they were approached by Ambiorix and they were given an ultimatum. Ambiorix saying, I owe many favors to Caesar, as I do to my people as a Gaul. And so I am compelled to both implore you to exit your winter quarters, as to not occupy our lands, but permit you safe return to Caesar and to Roman soldiers. In this way I repay the debts both to my people and my favors rendered to me by Caesar. So, go. Take your men and leave unharmed. The legate Sabinus, the legate Cotta, tribunes, and the senior centurions of the Wintering Legion convene, and they engage in a fierce council and debate. Sabinus arguing that they have the greatest impetus possible to flee, that through all of his rationalizations, there really is no perceivable reason why Ambiorix could possibly betray them, why he would fail to honor his word, and what it was the Romans hoped to achieve by battling it out in this winter fortress, cut off from food reserves, starving and beaten down like dogs. The legate Cotta, however, and the centurions, as well as the senior tribunes of the army, contested this fiercely. Now, without Caesar's word, why should they have to surrender a position to an armed enemy? This is not their way. It's not the way of the Roman people, not the will of the Roman Senate, or the traditions of the Roman army. Why, without orders, would they do such a thing? That is beneath them. Furthermore, they have ample food reserves to withstand any siege for some time. They would be better off in their fortified position than they would be trying the road. And for hours, these deliberations went on. The legate Cotta, growing weary, tired, and exhausted by an inconsolable Sabinus, who is rousing loudly so as to stir up flight, fear, and panic in the rest of the army, is capitulated. The army forms up and prepares to march to friendly territory. Of course, Ambiorix has concealed with the Ebrones, his tribe, 2 miles down ways, and they come upon the army. The legion is surrounded, burdened by heavy baggage, for of course Sabinus had not instated or created any contingent plans. And unfortunately, his lack of willpower, his lack of deliberations had entered thousands of lives to quite the predicament. Both the front and rear of the army was paralyzed. The Gauls set fire to the baggage, which panics many of the men who are already antsy and on edge. We see here a difference in the mental assuredness of the people involved. How even the tiniest smallest things, balancing on the knife's edge, change the fate of thousands of lives. When their baggage is set fire to, the men wail, panic. They sense impending death. Many of them crawl over one another to secure their most valuable things, as if they would be able to escape in one piece with that which was most treasured to them. Unfortunately, the greatest value of all, their own lives, many of them would not keep. The legate Kata rallies his cohorts, organized the men, and instated contingent plans to try to repel the enemy. He did not want to disembark in this way. Therefore, he expected something like this to happen. And during the brutal fighting, they had arranged themselves in a circular formation, which, in situations such as this, was nothing unwise. However, it was only to their disadvantage in this terrain. Sabinus, perceiving just how desperate they were, spotted Ambiorix, and he made for him. Not to kill him, not to cut the head off the Hydra, but to parley with him. Ambiorix, of course, remaining vague, slightly confusing, still with this visage of being a friend to the Roman people, invites Sabinus to approach. And he does so, but not alone. Of course, he brings with him the senior-most centurions, line officers, commanders of the army, hoping that Ambiorix, as a friend of the Roman people, might spare their lives as well as that of the soldiers. But no such thing happened. In one fell swoop, the curtain call drops, the facade is ended, Sabinus is surrounded, killed. There must have been some chagrin to Kata, fighting alongside his men, to have even heard that this is what Sabinus wanted to do, considering he had taken a slingshot bullet to his face and was wounded, yet still maintained the fight. That irritation growing ever still as Sabinus is ordered by Ambiorix before his death for this conveyance of parley to lay down his weapons, and he ordered the same for his men. Disarmed, surrounded, confused, directionless, hopeless, beaten. These men were killed summarily. Kata going down fighting alongside his men. A small contingent managed to retreat 2 miles back to the campsite, and after contemplating their condition, killed themselves, while only a handful managed to escape and bring word. We see here the difference of belief. How at times even thousands of lives are being influenced by belief. Now, these beliefs were not so necessarily on easily discernible moral facets. These were not things that were based upon some sort of governing principles for ourselves, something meant to inspire you or encourage you in your life today. But they were based on survival, the raw truths of nature, of those who wish to harm you and kill you merely by the circumstance of political things beyond conception, but only that you stand opposite one another in the field of battle. It is important therein for the soldier to believe in his tenets, believe in his doctrines, believe in his code. We see now the interworkings of a whole complex web of believing counterparts. Sometimes even that is not enough. But still, is it not thrilling to contemplate such determinism? Quintus Cicero would be similarly come upon in his winter quarters by the Nervii tribe. And they came to him with the petition to say, look at how we have butchered these fellows. Forced were we. We seek only to oust you from winter quarters, who may exit unharmed. To which Quintus Cicero replied, the Roman army does no such thing to an armed adversary. Lay down your weapons and comply with our commands, and we may well see what Caesar wants. That's a Roman response. That is a Roman answer. One such belief that the men therein can take certainty in. That the Venn diagram has aligned itself. The fidelity is true. The integrity is better, higher. Such is the knife's edge that things so often balance upon. The Nervii, of course, did not back down. They would assail this winter quarters without mercy. And the legion under Quintus Cicero's command would have to endure said siege, much like Servius Galba did 3 years prior. That after days of fighting, through sickness, illness, injury, death, these men endured and seized the day, surviving so that Caesar might arrive and end the siege. That when the legion was there and inspected by Caesar, not 1 in 10 men was left unwounded. Truly, there are those who precede us in all different parts of the world who have endured things beyond our comprehension. Just these small battles in this one time of history. But we see how important it becomes to truly believe in something. That when we believe, when we act in accordance with our belief, when those beside us do the same, what we are able to achieve is limitless, if we should be so lucky. As said, sometimes even that is not enough, because Cotta, his centurions and his men, they couldn't have had enough belief to make up for the lack thereof in Sabinus, and they died for it. So where you can, though you are not some soldier on the battlements, believe. If you believe, if you are Servius Galba, if you are Quintus Cicero, if you are believing, then your tribunes are believing too. And your centurions are believing, the senior most encouraging the most inferior, the subordinates. Then the Optios believe in the centurions too. And the guard commanders in them, and the soldiers in them. You must believe. When someone sees you believing something, when you are stalwart, steady, you provide the grounds necessary for others too to join you in that belief. Someone must be the first. That is the glory, that the determinism of the Roman mind, for as long as it reigned, for as continually as it enforced it and pursued this notion of determination, that is the wealth of that discovery. So examine these minutiae, examine these nuanced moments in time. They may not be moral in and of themselves, but discern therein the essence of determination. That is something we only need more of in this world.